Welcome YouTube to the Geek Life, where everything is all about the geekiness. Today I have a special little surprise for y'all, so I'm going to be going through a little bit of a deck profile for the offensive Arreaga Special that was debuted last week during the first Commander duel of the series. So without further ado, let's head out to the deck profile. So let's start off with the Commander for this deck. Anarwoon, the Rune Thief. So basically, it's a 2/4, 4 mana, 2 colorless, 1 island, 1 swamp. All your other rogues get extra +1/+1. Now, the whole gimmick of this is every time another rogue, including itself, attacks, and does damage to the opposing player, every single point of that damage that actually gets through, your opponent has to mill 1 card per damage. So with that, it kind of lends itself to the whole idea of put a bunch of different things on different rogues onto the battlefield, as you'll see a little bit later on, try to get some unblockable, some flying, stuff like that, to get as many rogues as possible actually dealing damage round after round to eventually mill your opponent out. So with that, let's take a look at the rest of the deck. So starting off with the creatures, what we have here is, first off, we have a Meringue River Prowler, a 2/1, 3 mana cost creature. It can't be blocked, and it can't blocked, and you can cast it from the graveyard as long as you control a black or a green permanent, which in this case we're playing with Dimir colors, so black-blue. So as long as we have some black permanent on the field, black creature or whatever, we can continuously bring it back from the grave, which is great because it's always going to get through since it's unblockable, which is what we need. Coming after that is Invisible Stalker, 1/1, 2 mana cost creature with hexproof and unblockable. Just building off of that theme of trying to get as many rogues dealing damage as possible. After that, Changeling Outcast, 1/1, 1 mana cost creature. It is a changeling, so that is very important as it is considered a rogue for our purposes. And the important part about this is it's unblockable, which is what we're looking for. Following on that trend, we have a Slither Blade, 1/2, 1 mana cost creature that's unblockable. Usually it's nothing too special, but in this deck where we want things to get through, that's where all the magic is. Coming up with the next card, Triton Shorestalker. Basically the same thing as last time, 1 mana cost, 1/1, unblockable. After that, we got a Sharefooted Infiltrator, 2/3, 4 mana cost creature, and what it says is you can untap another untapped rogue you control, and it becomes unblockable for the turn. And whenever this card deals damage to the player, you get to draw that card, draw a card. So basically what that means is tap some other rogue, doesn't matter, make it unblockable, ping for a little 2 damage, you have your commander on the board, mill 2 cards from your opponent, and you get to draw a card off of that. That's pretty decent in this book for me. So next up we have a Stink Drinker Bandit, 2/1, 4 mana cost creature with Prowl, and whenever a rogue that you control attacks and isn't blocked, it gets +2/+1 until the end of the turn. So this is good to really play down on the field, hold it back, not necessarily attack, and have a lot of your unblockables and your flyers actually go over a lot of creatures and actually get through. And since they're getting through many times unopposed, they actually get an extra +2, which if you have a few rogues coming, let's say you have 3 rogues in through, that's extra +6 damage and an extra 6 mil that the opponent has to do. So, which isn't bad, especially if you happen to have multiple rogues on the field. So after that, we have Master Thief, a 2/2 4-mana cost creature. When it enters the battlefield, gain control target artifact for as long as you control Master Thief. Now, this is pretty good outside of being a rogue, especially if you're going up against a artifact heavy deck, or even if somebody has a good artifact on the field, you can steal it, tap it for whatever effect it has, equip it onto your creatures, whatever. Or if it's an artifact creature, you can steal it, and that's one less blockable monster that the opponent has to really declare blockers against your attackers, which is good in my book. After that, you have this little creature here, Sepulchral Primordial, 5/4 7-mana cost creature with Intimidate, and whenever it enters the battlefield, for each target opponent, you may put up to 1 target creature card from that player's graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. So it's a pretty decent later game creature. Has some uses in mid game, but probably late game after you mill a bunch of cards, you can just say, hey, I'm gonna play this down, pick up whatever the scariest creature is in the opponent's graveyard, whether it's in terms of power, effect, whatever, and now you have that. Now, in a one-on-one commander duel, it has its hits and misses, but if you happen to be playing a 4 or 5 person commander duel, that's probably going to take the next 6 hours. This actually becomes pretty good, because now you end up with 4, 5, 6 creatures being pulled out of your opponent's graves, and that's extra 4, 5, 6 creatures on your side of the field. So not bad, not bad. Next up after that, you have a Merfolk Wind Robber, 1/1 1 colored 1 blue mana cost creature with flying, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, that player mills a card. And whenever you wish, you can sacrifice this creature to draw a card, but you can only activate that if an opponent has 8 or more cards in their graveyard. Now, the first effect is flying, which is excellent. Flying's always good, but in this deck is really good because it helps us to get over a lot more things that are solely grounded to get that extra mill off. And then when it actually happens to deal damage, not only will it mill from our commander's effect, but it also mills an extra card based off of its effect. So that's a continuous +1 mill, which isn't bad for early game especially. After that, we have Sorin Thought Thief, 1/3 2 mana cost, flash flying. There we go again with the flying to get over enemy creatures. As long as an opponent has 8 or more cards in their graveyard, rogues you control get +1/+0, which is great for us because not only is that an extra ping per creature, but that's also an extra card an opponent has to mill per creature that actually gets through with an attack. And then also whenever one or more rogues you control attacks, each opponent mills 2 cards. That is excellent because that's extra 2 cards milled on top of your commander's effect, on top of your other creature's effects. So it can start to really spiral out of control if you have the right cards on the field. After that, we have Ona's Blackguard, 1/1 2 mana cost creature, flying. Each other rogue you control enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. Not too bad, not too bad. And also, whenever a creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it deals combat damage to a player, that player discards a card. So with this, it combos pretty pretty decently, but now you're not just attacking the opponent's deck, you're also attacking their hand, so that's not safe any longer. After that, we have Sierra Conrad, the Grim, 5/4, 5 mana cost creature, legendary creature, that basically, whenever another creature dies or is put into the graveyard from anywhere other than the battlefield, or a creature card leaves your graveyard, this card deals 1 damage to each opponent. This effect isn't really something that we're really going for. It's nice to have as a little ping, but what we're really going after outside of a moderately sized 5/4 body is for two colors, for a colorless and a swamp, each player mills a card, and seeing that you don't have to tap this card for that effect, you can do it as many times as you have mana, which can be a little extra mill in case somebody's low on resources. After that, we have Gonti, the Lord of Luxury, 2/3, 4 mana cost creature with Death Touch. Whenever it enters the battlefield, basically look at the top 4 cards of the target opponent's library, exile one of them face down, and put the rest on the bottom in random order. And as long as that card remains face down, exile, you may look at it and cast it anytime, and you may spend any of your mana as if it were mana of that color to cast it, which can be good, especially if you happen to hit like a really good card or a board wipe or a good creature, whatever it may be. And if you happen to see the opponent happens to stack their deck and have a pretty good, or should I say pretty bad poker face, so you know that something good is coming, just play this card and nab it for yourself. After that, we have Ona, the Queen of the Fae, 5/5, 6 mana cost creature flying, where you can pay island or swamp and X amount of colorless. Choose a color. Target opponent exiles the top X cards of their library. For each card of the chosen color, exile this way. Create a 1/1 blue and black fairy rogue creature with token with flying. Now, what this card is good for is kind of sort of twofold. Number one, you're milling out the opponent a little bit more, which is always good for this deck, but you're also putting a lot of token creatures on the field, which can be good for chump blockers too, but the key part is they're considered a rogue, so all of those flying creatures, every time they hit the opponent, your commander effect is going off, forcing the target opponent to mill an extra card, which is pretty good. After that, we have Marsh Flitter, 1/1, 4 mana cost creature, flying. When it enters the battlefield, create 2 1/1 black goblin rogue creature tokens, sacrifice one of those tokens, and Marsh Flitter has a base power and toughness of 3/3 until the end of the turn. It's probably one of the weaker cards in the deck for effects and whatnot. I mean, yeah, it puts a couple extra rogue tokens on the field. You can sack one of them to bump it up by 2/2 until the end of the turn, so it's okay. But if you're looking for maybe want to spin your own flavor on this deck or anything like that, then this would be a good card to take out. After that, Scroll Thief, 1/3, 3 mana cost creature. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. This is one of those creatures that will definitely help with your mana draw, which, especially in Commander with 99 cards in your deck, 9,900 cards in your deck, you need some sort of draw form. So this is one of the few things that really helps you out. Next up, Latchkey Fairy, 3/1, 4 mana cost creature, flying, prowl. When it enters the battlefield, if prowl was paid, you get to draw a card. So we're really getting on that case of let's have some draw power to keep our hands up, And it helps with a little bit of the recovery of the deck. Number one, in case you need it, and number two, it helps you draw into more pieces. Maybe you're searching for something, maybe you want to try to drop a few more rogues to make a final push, whatever it may be. Then after that, we have Stig, River Cutthroat, 1/3, 2 mana cost creature at the beginning of end step. Each end step, if an opponent lost 3 or more life this turn, you may draw a card. 3 or more life isn't that hard to get, especially in a deck full of flyers and unblockable creatures. Now, to my knowledge, based on what it reads, if an opponent lost 3 or more life this turn, doesn't have to be through battle, doesn't have to be from you. It just says 3 or more life. However you get to it, maybe an opponent swing big with a big trample green creature, deals 6 damage. That is enough to trigger Cutthroat's effect, so you get to draw a card. So keep that in mind, especially in a multiplayer Commander that game. After that, we have Fairy Vandal, 1/2, 2 mana cost creature, flash flying. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, put a 1/1 counter on this card. So if you know you're about to draw a second turn, just pay its cost to flash it in and start building up a couple of counters on it with flying to ping your opponent even harder and mill them out even harder. After that, we have Notion Thief, 3/1, 4 mana cost creature with flash. If an opponent would draw a card, except the first one they draw in each of their draw steps, instead that player skips that draw and you draw a card. So just kind of compounding on, let's try to make sure we have some draw and recovery forms for us, and a little bit of a soft, this is why I play blue, so I can say nope to some of your stuff. After that, Frog Tosser Banneret, 1/1, 2 mana cost creature with haste. Goblin spells and rogue spells you cast cost 1 colorless less to cast, which is good. Which means, seeing how like about 95-98% of your creatures are rogues, making them just a tad bit cheaper is going to be really good to help bring out the offense a bit. After that, we have Scourge of Fleets, 6/6, 7 mana cost creature. Whenever it enters the battlefield, return each creature your opponent controls with toughness X or less to its owner's hand, where X is the number of islands you control. Which is really good, because considering it's more of a late game card, it can potentially be a very helpful board wipe for you. And as you know, board wipes are pretty good to have. You need to have some, so this helps with the board wipe. And it's a pretty beefy 6/6 creature to put on the board, and being that it's a Kraken, you're probably not going to want to attack with it very much in terms of the milling aspect, but it's a good chump blocker, or if you need to get that extra 6 damage, you can. After that, we have Consuming Apparition. Now I really like this card in mill decks in general. It's a starter 5 mana cost creature, and its power and toughness is equal to the number of cards in your opponent's graveyards. Now that is good for late game. Once you start having a lot of start milling out a lot of cards, this can easily get up to 20-20, 30-30, 40-40, something like that, especially in a multiplayer game. So this can be pretty good. And whenever you cast a spell, each opponent reveals cards from the top of their library until they reveal a land card, and put all of those cards into the graveyard. So that is really good. Every time you play a spell, you're in essence making it, pumping it up without really having to do anything else. After that, we have Night Howler, 0/0, 3 mana cost creature with Bestow. Nightcrawler and if you happen to enchant a creature with it, it gets +X+X, where X is the number of creature cards in all the graveyards. This can potentially be good mid to late game to really slap this onto one of your unblockable rogues so they can get extra +5/+5 or +7/+7 or what have you. That could very well be enough to seal the game right there from either mill or from damage. After that, we have Night Veil Sprite. 1/2, 2 mana cost creature, flying, surveil 1. It's pretty okay early game creature. Cheap, and you pretty much surveil, so look at the top card of your deck. If you want to keep it, if not, chuck it. So it can kind of be a little bit of a mana unscrewing or what have you. Next up, we have Lazav, Dimir Mastermind. 3/3, 4 mana cost creature, hexproof. Whenever a creature is put into the opponent's graveyard from anywhere, this card can basically become a copy of that card. In addition, it's also legendary. In addition to its other types, it has hexproof and this ability. So it can potentially be pretty good if the right creature is sent to the graveyard. After that, we have Zulaport Cutthroat, a 1/1, 2 mana cost creature. Whenever pretty much any creature you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. It's not the strongest card in the deck, but a little bit of self-healing can be good. So with that, that's all the creatures for this deck. Let's take a look at the artifacts that we have in this deck. So first off, we have Mind Stone, 2 mana cost. Tap it for colorless, or tap a color and it to draw a card and sack it. Soul Ring. It's Soul Ring. No need to explain. Also, we have Arcane Signet. For 2 colorless mana, it's basically a color of your commander's identity, so it can be some mana fixing if you just aren't drawing a black or just aren't drawing a blue. Commander's Sphere, which is basically the same thing as the Signet, only you can sack this card to draw a card if you need to. Dimir Locket, tap it for a blue or a black. You can also tap for a color, or 4 mana, sacrifice it to draw 2 cards in case you need to really restock your hand for anything. Then we have Dimir Keyrune. Tap it for a blue or a black, or you can tap a blue and a black. It becomes a 2/2 blue and black horror artifact creature until the end of the turn and can't be blocked this turn. So I feel like most of the time you'll be using this card just for a little bit of extra mana, but in case you need to make an extra push with extra 2/2, the option's there. Dimir Signet, you tap 1 and tap it to be able to add a blue and a black to your mana pool. Then you have Blackblade Reforge, 2 mana cost artifact. Creature gets +1/+1 for each land you control. You can tap 3 to equip it to a legendary creature, or equip 7 to anything else. This can get pretty decent mid to late game if you're trying to push with an unblockable creature or flyer, or you really need to have to beef up your chump blocker. You can just put this on. After that, you have a Whisper Steel Dagger. Equipped creature has +2/+0, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you may cast a creature spell from that player's graveyard this turn, and you may spend mana as though as mana of any color to cast that creature spell. This can be pretty good to basically just equip it onto one of your unblockables. Attack, it's going to get through, then cast a big scary creature or whatnot from your opponent's graveyard, so not bad at all. And it's extra +2 to your rogue, so extra 2 cards being milled. There we have Scytheclaw, 5 mana cost, living weapon. Equipped creature gets +1/+1. When it deals combat damage to a player, that player loses half of their life, rounded up. So that's especially good if somebody happens to get I can't remember what the name of the card is off the top of my head, but as you can see in the last Commander duel, when that one Planeswalker went off to gain 100 life, this could easily help you out to wither that life down pretty quickly. After that, we have a Heirloom Blade, 3 mana cost. Equipped creature gets +3/+1. Whenever the equipped creature die, you may reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature card that shares the creature type with it. Put that creature card into your hand and the rest of your library to the rest of those cards to the bottom of your library in a random order. What's good is that since pretty much every creature except for maybe 2 creatures is a rogue, chances are good that whatever creature you pick up is going to your hand. And it's pretty cheap to equip to a creature, so it's not bad. Then finally we have Obelisk of Earth, 6 mana cost card, Convoke, and whenever it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type, which in this case you're choosing rogue, since that's what most of your creatures are. Creatures of that type you control gets +2/+2, which is very good in this deck. That basically has a lot of their milling stemming through combat damage. So now that we got through the artifacts, let's take a look at the instance and see what we have. So first we have Spiral Embrace, 6 mana cost card. It can only be casted during combat. You can untap a target creature that an opponent has, gain control of it. It gains haste, and you sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. If you do, you gain life equals to its toughness, which is pretty good. If you use it on your turn, you can get another attacker. If you use it on your opponent's turn, it basically gives you another blocker. But no matter how you use it, if it happens to survive, you gain life equal to the toughness. Or if you want to not block or attack with it, just sack it off for the toughness. So that's pretty good. And seeing how it's sacrificed at the next end step, you still have time to activate its ability if it has ability. It's really good. After that, Fated Return, 7 mana cost instant. Put a target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. It gains indestructible, and if it's your turn, you get to scry 2. Scry 2 part, never going to say no to scrying 2, seeing what's coming up. But to basically put a creature card onto the battlefield under your control with indestructible, that could be very good to either nab a scary monster from your opponent's graveyard or one of your creatures that you really need. After that, we have Totally Lost. Put a target non-land permanent on top of its owner's library, 5 mana cost. So it's a little bit of removal and a little bit of draw control, which is good. After that, Aetherize, 4 mana cost instant, and return all attacking creatures to their owner's hands. Now this can be a pretty good board wipe if used at the right time. If your opponent is making a final push, just lay this down. Now the opponent's field is barren, or maybe 1 or 2 chump blockers left. That's a good time to go all in with your rogues and have the opponent mill a bunch of cards. After that, Price of Flame, 4 mana cost card. Costs 2 less if it targets a legendary creature. You destroy it, and you surveil 2, so it's good to get rid of those pesky legendary creatures that your opponent has. After that, we have Murder, 3 mana cost creature, straight out destroy target creature. Not bad. After that, Warped Physique, 2 mana cost instant. Target creature gets +X/-X until the end of the turn, where X is a number of cards in your hand. Now this can have both an offensive or defensive use. Offensively, it can be used to really give one of your rogues extra couple of power to really crank out some extra damage and mill, or it can be used defensively to really target those weaker toughness creatures your opponent has to basically destroy them. After that, supernatural stamina, 1 mana cost, instant until the end of the turn. Target creature has +2/+0. Whenever it dies, return it to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control. It's not bad. It can be used for a little bit of extra offense or defense if you're jump blocking. After that, Sillamonger's Command, 5 mana cost, instant. Choose 2. You can either counter target non-creature spell, return target permanent to its owner's hand, target creature gets -3/-3 until the end of the turn, or target or destroy target planeswalker. So it has a few useful effects depending on what you need. After that, we have Soul Manipulation, 3 mana cost card, where you can choose one or both of the below, of either countering target creature spell or return target creature spell from your graveyard to your hand. At the very least, countering target creature can be good to prevent a big bad nasty from hitting the field. After that, we have Factor Fiction, 4 mana cost instant. Reveal top 5 cards of your library. Opponent separates them into 2 piles, and you get to choose which pile goes in your hand and which pile goes into the graveyard. So it can be pretty good depending on what's being put in the piles. So with that, let's take a look at the sorceries to see what we got. So first off, we have a Necromantic Selection, a 7 mana cost sorcery. Destroy all creatures and return a creature card from a graveyard this way onto the battlefield under your control. That's a black zombie in addition to whatever else it has. And this card is exiled afterwards, which is pretty good in my opinion. Of course, you're not playing this no time near the start of the game, but if the game happens to get there, it's a pretty good. Alright, I'm just gonna board wipe everything, and I'm reviving the big baddest, nastiest thing to do whatever with it. So it's pretty good. Then we have Inguruk's Wake, 9 mana cost sorcery. Destroy all creatures you don't control and all planeswalkers you don't control. So it's pretty expensive with 9 mana cost, but if you're able to pull it off, then it's more than likely going to be game from there. After that, we have Extract from Darkness, 5 mana cost card. Each player mills 2 cards, then you put a creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. So extra mill, so not bad, and a little extra recursion. Stolen Identity, 6 mana cost card to basically create a token copy of a target artifact or creature, and it has Cipher, so not bad. Rise from the Grave, 5 mana cost card. Put a target creature card from a graveyard to the battlefield under your control, and it's a zombie in addition to everything else. So later game card after you start milling to really get some more of your big bads onto the field. So while your rogues attack, you can have some other creature you stole from the opponent do their effects, or just toy with the opponent and have it as a chump blocker. After that, Endless Obedience, 6 mana cost card with Convoke. Put target creature from graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. So now that you're starting to see the whole thing of this deck is mill a bunch of cards, then bring back a lot of creature cards back to the battlefield under your control. So it's going to really be negating a lot of what your opponent has to do. Next up, we have Open into Wonder. 2 mana cost with X. X target creatures can't be blocked this turn. Until the end of the turn, creatures also gain when this creature deals combat damage to a player, you get to draw a card. So basically this is allowing you to not only draw some cards, but also it's making some of your creatures that don't naturally get unblockable gain unblockable this turn. So it's especially useful if you happen to recur a lot of those big body creature cards from your opponent's side of the graveyard. Next turn, just play this, target those 2 or 3 big beefy dudes, and they're basically attacking for a whole bunch of damage. After that, we have Distant Melody, 4 mana cost sorcery, choose a creature type, draw a card for each permanent you control of that type. So of course you're going to naturally pick Rogue, and you can potentially be drawing 5, 6, 7, 8 plus cards depending on how many rogues you have, so this is definitely a good recovery move here. After that, Notorious Throng, 4 mana cost creature, Prowl, create X/1/1 Black Fairy Rogue creature, tokens of mine, where X is the damage dealt to your opponents this turn. If this spell's Prowl cost was paid, you take an extra turn after this one, so this is really good. Bunch of unblockables on the field, attack, play this, you get extra 3-4 bodies on the field, take another turn, and do it all over again. So not bad. So with that, let's take a look at the lone enchantment we have in this deck. A pretty small 2 mana cost enchantment. Whenever you attack with 2 more creatures, you draw a card, just to help out with the drawing of this deck. And then just for the special lands that we have, Myriad Landscape. It enters tap. You can add a colorless, sacrifice it, search your library for up to 2 basic land cards that share a land type, put them onto the battlefield tapped, and shuffle your library. So this can be pretty decent if you need a little bit of a land fix. Rogue's Passage, tap for a colorless, or tap 4 and it to make 1 creature unblockable for the turn. Command Tower for extra blue or black. Then we have Submerged Boneyard, Dismal Blackwater, Island Refuge, and Dimir Gilgate, just for all of your tap for a blue or black lands. And then we have the Dimir Aqueduct, which is just our basic return a card, return a land to your hand, play this tap, and then you can tap it whenever to add a blue and a black card to your mana pool. So with that concludes our deck profile for the offensive Arreaga Special deck. And feel free to really make any changes you wish to this deck. And also, don't forget, I would love to hear your comments on what can be done to improve the offensive Arreaga Special. And until then, not only do I recommend you hit the subscribe button below, but also keep your life geeky, folks.